The security cameras would capture Harper Mitchell's wheelchair executing a perfect 360 spin before her reinforced footrest connected with Bryce Wellington's jaw, sending the 6'2" wrestler sprawling across Westfield High's marble entrance. But nobody believed the helpless girl in the wheelchair could generate enough force to drop the state champion until they saw his tooth embedded in her aluminum footplate. Harper's fingers traced the cold metal of her wheelchair's push rims as she navigated the morning chaos of Westfield High School in Cedar Heights, Colorado, 7:45 a.m. sharp. Just like every day since the accident 14 months ago, the November air bit through her navy cardigan, but the chill running down her spine had nothing to do with the weather. Look who finally rolled in. Bryce Wellington's voice boomed across the main corridor, causing a ripple effect as students instinctively pressed against their lockers. At 17, Bryce commanded the hallway like a general surveying his territory, 220 pounds of muscle wrapped in a Letterman jacket that bore more patches than a military uniform. Harper kept her eyes forward, counting the wheel rotations. 23 to reach her locker. She'd made this journey 200 times, but today felt different. Today, she wasn't going to count silently. 21, 22, 23, she said aloud, her voice cutting through the morning chatter. What's that? Wheels? Practicing your numbers? Bryce's lieutenant, Connor Walsh, laughed from his perch against the trophy case. Maybe she's counting how many times she's been rejected for prom. The hallway erupted in nervous laughter, not because it was funny, but because not laughing meant becoming a target. Harper had learned that lesson, watching others fall from social grace for the crime of showing sympathy. Actually, Harper said, spinning her chair with practiced precision to face them, I'm counting how many times you've made that same tired joke. Connor, we're at 47 now. Your creativity is truly inspiring. The laughter died. Someone dropped their textbook, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the sudden silence. Bryce's jaw twitched the tell Harper had cataloged along with 32 other behavioral patterns over the past year. He pushed off from the wall, his wrestling team flanking him like trained dogs. You got a smart mouth today. Mitchell, he said, closing the distance between them. Somebody forget to tighten your bolts this morning? Harper's best friend, Sophia Chen, materialized beside her wheelchair. All 5 feet 2 inches of her vibrated with barely contained fury. Despite being sophomore class president and a straight-A student, Sophia had been relegated to social exile for the crime of staying loyal to Harper after the accident. Back off, Bryce, Sophia warned, her hand finding Harper's shoulder. Or what? Bryce sneered. You'll report me to student council? Oh wait, he snapped his fingers in mock realization. Nobody listens to the cripple crew. That word hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Even Bryce's own crew shifted uncomfortably. There were lines, and he'd just pole vaulted over one. Harper felt Sophia's hand tighten on her shoulder, but she gently patted it. It's fine. Soph, he's just projecting his own insecurities about his college rejection letters. The color drained from Bryce's face, before rushing back in a wave of crimson. What did you say? Oh, did I hit a nerve? Harper tilted her head, studying him with the detached interest of a scientist observing a specimen. University of Colorado. Rejected. Colorado State. Waitlisted. Front Range Community College. Still pending. Must be tough when your daddy's donations can't buy you a brain. Nobody knew how Harper had accessed that information. The truth involved her older brother Marcus, a senior at MIT who'd taught her a thing or two about digital reconnaissance during his summer visit. But they didn't need to know that. You little Bryce lunged forward, grabbing the handles of Harper's wheelchair. Time crystallized. Harper had visualized this moment 1,000 times during her secret training sessions with Miss Rodriguez, the school's adaptive PE instructor who'd competed in Paralympic judo before a car accident ended her career. Every evening after school, when Harper told her mother she was at study group, she was actually in the auxiliary gym, learning to weaponize the very thing everyone saw as her weakness. Last warning, Harper said, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried more weight than a scream. Let go. Bryce laughed, that cruel, hollow sound that had soundtracked so many students' nightmares. Make me. Broken Barbie. He yanked the wheelchair forward, hard enough that Harper's backpack tumbled to the ground, spilling its carefully organized contents across the floor. Her color-coded notebooks fanned out like rainbow casualties, the leg braces she wore under her jeans the ones nobody knew about because she wasn't ready for that conversation shifted painfully. But Harper didn't cry out. She'd learned to swallow pain like other people swallowed pride. Mr. Wellington, Assistant Principal Gerald Morrison stood at the end of the hallway. His coffee mug frozen halfway to his lips. At 55, Morrison had perfected the art of selective blindness when it came to certain students. The Wellington family's construction company had built the new science wing, after all, just helping Harper with her things. Mr. Morrison, Bryce said smoothly. Though his hands remained locked on the wheelchair handles, she dropped her bag. Morrison's eyes swept over the scene. Harper trapped. Sophia bristling. The wrestling team forming a semicircle, dozens of phones held at half-mast, ready to record whatever came next. I see, Morrison said finally. Well, help her pick them up. Then, the bell rings in 3 minutes. He turned and walked away, his leather shoes clicking a coward's retreat down the hallway. That's when Harper knew no adult was coming to save her. No authority figure would risk their position to protect the girl who'd gone from cheerleader to wheelchair user in one drunk driver's mistake. The system had made its allegiances clear. You heard him, Bryce said, his grin sharpening. Let me help you. He shoved the wheelchair backward with enough force to send Harper rolling. Her hands flew to the wheel rims, but Bryce was already pushing again, using his wrestler's strength to control her movement. He spun her in a mocking circle as his teammates laughed. Stop, Sophia shouted, trying to grab the chair. But Connor blocked her path. Just having some fun? Bryce said, spinning Harper faster. She probably misses the cheerleading routines. Right. Harper? Remember when you could actually do something useful with those legs? The world blurred past Harper's vision faces. Lockers. The stupid motivational posters about kindness that might as well have been written in Sanskrit for all the good they did. His stomach churned, but not from the motion. From rage. Pure. Crystallized. 14 months in the making rage. Harper's hands found the wheel rims and locked down with a grip that 200 hours of training had made unbreakable. The wheelchair jerked to a stop so suddenly that Bryce stumbled forward. Off balance. That was all she needed. In one fluid motion born from countless repetitions, Harper shifted her weight back while keeping her wheels locked. The physics were simple every. Action has an equal and opposite reaction. Bryce's forward momentum plus her backward lean equaled an opportunity. She released her right wheel while pivoting on the left, using the chair's own weight as a fulcrum. Her upper body, strengthened by months of adaptive training, torqued with explosive power. The wheelchair spun like a figure skater in a death spiral. What the Bryce started to say, the reinforced footrest of Harper's wheelchair, modified with a steel plate for stability. Miss Rodriguez had winked when she'd made the suggestion. Connected with Bryce Wellington's jaw at the apex of the spin, the sound was beautiful. A wet crack, followed by the distinct tinkle of enamel hitting marble. Bryce's body actually lifted off the ground. 220 pounds of prime athlete defeated by simple physics and perfect timing. He flew backward in an arc that would have been graceful if not for the way his arms windmilled desperately for balance that would never come. He crashed into the trophy case with enough force to spiderweb the glass. State championship trophy trembled. A framed photo of last year's wrestling team, Bryce front and center, fell and shattered on impact. The hallway exploded. Holy mother of. Did you see that? She knocked him out. Get the nurse. No. Keep recording. Harper calmly completed her spin, settling back into position, with her hands folded in her lap. Her heart hammered against her ribs like a caged bird. But outwardly she appeared as serene as a meditation instructor. Bryce groaned from his position on the floor, blood streaming from his mouth. He touched his jaw gingerly, then stared at his hand in disbelief. On the white marble between them lay a single tooth of front incisor that had probably cost his parents $3,000 in orthodontic work. My tooth, he mumbled, the words slurred by shock and swelling. You knocked out my tooth. Actually, Harper said conversationally, you knocked out your own tooth. I just provided the axis of rotation. Sophia stood frozen, her mouth forming a perfect O of shock. Connor and the other wrestlers had backed away, as if Harper's wheelchair had suddenly transformed into a tank. Which, she supposed, it had. Someone call 911. Ashley Brennan shrieked from behind her chemistry textbook. No, Harper said firmly. Call the resource officer, and someone please pick up that tooth. The oral surgeon will need it if there's any hope of reimplantation. Though given the force of impact, the root is probably fractured. She'd done her research. Miss Rodriguez had made sure of that. Know the consequences. She'd said, be prepared for all outcomes. Bryce struggled to his feet, swaying like a freshman at their first party. Blood dripped onto his Letterman jacket. Each drop a small victory against years of unchecked privilege. You're dead. He slurred, pointing a shaking finger at Harper. My dad will sue. You'll be expelled, arrested. You psycho. Mr. Wellington. Miss Mitchell. My office. Now. Principal Catherine Wells stood at the end of the hallway like an avenging angel in Ann Taylor. Unlike Morrison, she didn't carry her coffee like a shield. Her hands were free, ready for business. She assaulted me. Bryce immediately protested, spraying blood with each word. I saw the entire incident from my office window. Principal Wells said coolly, as did the 12 security cameras covering this hallway, so I suggest you save your version of events until we can review the footage together. Harper felt a flutter of something that might have been hope. Wells was new, transferred from a school in Denver just 3 months ago. She hadn't yet been infected by Cedar Heights' particular brand of institutional cowardice. I need medical attention. Bryce whined. Nurse Patterson is already on her way. She'll determine if you need to go to the hospital. Miss Mitchell, can you make it to my office unassisted? Yes, ma'am, Harper said, finally allowing her hands to relax on the wheel rims. She noticed they were trembling slightly. Adrenaline, not fear. Everyone else, get to class. Principal Wells commanded, and if I see a single video of this incident on social media before the end of the school day, the poster will be suspended. Are we clear? Mumbled agreements rippled through the crowd as students began to disperse. Though not without shooting, Harper looks that ranged from awe to fear to something that might have been respect as Harper wheeled past Bryce, who was gingerly holding his tooth like a bloody pearl. She paused. For what it's worth, she said quietly, I've been where you are, flat on my back, wondering how everything changed so fast. The difference is, my accident wasn't my fault. Yours was. She left him standing there, processing her words through his haze of pain and humiliation. Sophia fell into step beside Harper's wheelchair, her face still stunned. Harper, that was. I can't even. How did you, later? Harper promised. Right now, I need you to do something for me. Anything. Call Marcus. Tell him to check his encrypted folder. He'll know what to do. Sophia's eyes widened. Harper, what did you do? What I had to. Harper said, what I should have done months ago. As they approached Principal Wells's office, Harper's phone buzzed. A text from a number she didn't recognize. Saw the show. Impressive. We should talk. V. Harper deleted the message, but a chill ran down her spine that had nothing to do with the November air. V only meant one person at Westfield High, and if Victoria Ashford was reaching out, it meant the real game was just beginning. Inside Principal Wells's office, Harper positioned her wheelchair across from the imposing desk. The walls were still bare, boxes of belongings stacked in corners. A half-unpacked photo showed Wells shaking hands with someone Harper recognized as the Secretary of Education. While we wait for Mr. Wellington and the nurse, Principal Wells said, settling into her chair with the grace of someone comfortable with authority. Perhaps you could tell me about the adaptive physical education program you've been attending after school. Harper's stomach dropped. How did you, Miss Rodriguez requested special permission to use the auxiliary gym after hours. She listed you as her sole student. Wells leaned forward. Herfing a steeple. I'm curious why you felt the need to hide defensive training from your mother. Because she would have worried. Harper said honestly, and we can't afford. The lessons were free. Wells interrupted. Miss Rodriguez noted that in her request, try again. Harper met the principal's steady gaze. Because learning to defend myself meant admitting I needed to. It meant accepting that this, she gestured at her wheelchair, made me a target. My mom already blames herself for letting me go to that party, for not picking me up herself. If she knew I was being bullied, It would confirm her worst fears about letting you return to regular school. Wells finished. I understand. But secrets have a way of revealing themselves at inconvenient times. A knock interrupted them. Morrison entered, followed by Bryce, holding an ice pack to his face. Nurse Patterson, and a man Harper recognized as Jim Wellington, Bryce's father and one of the most powerful men in Cedar Heights. Catherine, Jim Wellington said without preamble, I want that girl expelled and charged with assault. Jim, Principal Wells replied, not getting up from her desk. So nice of you to leave your construction site. Please, have a seat. We were just about to review the security footage. I don't need to see footage. Jim snapped. My son is injured. That's assault. Plain and simple. Actually, Wells said, turning her computer monitor so everyone could see, it's self-defense. Plain and simple. She clicked play. The high-definition footage showed everything. Bryce grabbing Harper's wheelchair, Morrison walking away, the force spinning, and finally, Harper's defensive maneuver. As you can see, Wells narrated calmly, your son initiated physical contact, maintained control of Miss Mitchell's mobility device against her explicit protests, and created a situation where she had every right to defend herself. She could have killed him. Jim protested, and he could have tipped her chair. Wells countered, do you know what happens when someone falls backward from a wheelchair? Mr. Wellington, traumatic brain injury, paralysis, death. Your son weaponized Miss Mitchell's disability for entertainment. Harper watched Bryce shrink in his chair as the video played on a loop. Each replay seemed to diminish him further. Furthermore, Wells continued, opening a folder on her desk. I've spent the morning reviewing incident reports from the past year. 37 complaints filed against your son, all mysteriously dismissed or lost. Would you like me to read them aloud? Jim Wellington's face had progressed from red to purple. You're new here. Principal Wells, you don't understand how things work in Cedar Heights. Oh, I understand perfectly, Wells said, her smile sharp as winter ice. You donate money. Your company gets contracts. And your son gets to terrorize students with impunity, but I'm not from Cedar Heights. Mr. Wellington, I'm from Chicago, where we dealt with much scarier bullies than teenage boys with daddy issues. How dare you? October 2nd, Harper interrupted, pulling out her phone. Everyone turned to stare at her. Bryce posted a video of me struggling to reach my locker with the caption, watching the cripple pretend to be normal. 1,300 views. 423 likes. She swiped to another screen. October 15th, he created a meme using a photo taken without my permission. It shows me being lifted into the school van with the text, when you realize the cheerleader to wheelchair pipeline is real. 2,000 shares. Those were jokes. Bryce mumbled through his swollen jaw. November 1st. Harper continued relentlessly. You started a betting pool on how long before I gave up and switched to homeschool. Current pot is $850. Jim Wellington turned to his son. Is this true? Bryce couldn't meet his father's eyes. November 12th. Harper wasn't done. You cornered me in the accessible bathroom and said, and I quote, if you can't stand up for yourself, maybe you should just lie down permanently. 43 seconds of audio. Would you like me to play it? The room fell silent, except for the hum of the ancient heating system. I have 14 months of documentation, Harper said quietly. Every incident, every witness, every digital footprint your son thought he was clever enough to hide. My brother studies cybersecurity at MIT. Did you know that nothing is ever really deleted from the internet? She turned to Principal Wells. I didn't want to be this person. The girl who documents everything, who prepares for war while hoping for peace. But when the system fails you repeatedly, you learn to build your own justice. You manipulative little Jim Wellington started to rise from his chair. Sit down. Wells commanded with such authority that he actually complied. Miss Mitchell, while I don't condone violence, I understand that you were defending yourself. No disciplinary action will be taken against you. This is outrageous. Jim sputtered. What's outrageous? Wells continued. Is that your son has been allowed to terrorize students for years. That ends today. Bryce, you're suspended for 2 weeks, pending a full investigation. You'll also undergo mandatory sensitivity training and perform 100 hours of community service at the Cedar Heights Adaptive Recreation Center. You can't. I can, and I will. And if you withdraw your son or threaten legal action, I'll personally ensure that every college admissions board in the country receives a comprehensive file on his behavior, complete with video evidence. She turned to Harper. As for you, Miss Mitchell, while your actions were justified, I need you to promise that any future incidents will be reported to me directly. Vigilante justice, even in self-defense, is a dangerous path. Yes, ma'am, Harper agreed, though they both knew the promise was conditional on the system actually working. Now, well said. Standing up. I believe first period is nearly over. Miss Mitchell, take your time getting to second period. Mr. Wellington, the nurse will escort you to the health office to arrange transportation to the hospital, and Mr. Wellington Sr., you're no longer welcome on school property without an appointment. Have I made myself clear? The dismissal was absolute. Jim Wellington looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Wells's expression stopped him. He grabbed his son's arm, the non-injured one, and stormed out. Morrison, who had been silent throughout the exchange, cleared his throat. Principal Wells, perhaps we should discuss. Gerald, Wells said pleasantly, you and I will be having a very different discussion about your failure to intervene this morning. For now, please ensure the hallways are clear. Morrison fled like his shoes were on fire. When they were alone, Principal Wells sat back down, suddenly looking every one of her 53 years. You know this isn't over, don't you? Harper nodded. The Wellingtons don't lose gracefully. Neither do the Ashfords. From what I hear, Wells pulled out the student directory and flipped to a marked page. Victoria Ashford, Senior, valedictorian candidate. Also happens to be Bryce Wellington's ex-girlfriend as of last month. Rumor has it, the breakup was acrimonious. Why are you telling me this? Because in my experience, Miss Mitchell, when powerful people are embarrassed, they don't get even, they get creative. And Victoria Ashford is nothing if not creative. Harper thought about the mysterious text. Victoria. Of course, what should I do? Wells closed the directory. What you've been doing. Stay alert. Document everything. And maybe, she paused, choosing her words carefully, expand your training. Miss Rodriguez is excellent with physical defense, but there are other kinds of battles. You're telling me to prepare for war. I'm telling you that you've already won your first battle. But in places like Cedar Heights, the war never really ends. It just changes shape. Wells stood up, smoothing her skirt. Now, I believe you have chemistry with Dr. Patel. Tell her I'll email about your tardiness. Harper wheeled toward the door, then paused. Principal Wells, why are you helping me? Really? The older woman smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Because 25 years ago, I was a sophomore at a prestigious private school in Chicago. I was also the only black girl in my grade. And I learned very quickly that some battles you can't win by following the rules. She moved to the window, looking out at the parking lot where Jim Wellington was shoving his son into a Mercedes. I couldn't fight back the way you did, but I could excel. I could succeed. I could climb high enough that eventually I'd be in a position to change the rules themselves. And have you? Change them? I'm trying. Miss Mitchell, one suspension at a time. She turned back to Harper. But change is slow. And sometimes, while we're waiting for the system to evolve, we need warriors like you to remind everyone that power isn't always what it seems. Harper left the office with her mind racing. She'd won today, but Principal Wells was right. This was just the beginning. As she navigated the empty hallway, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was Sophia. Marcus says the folder is live. Also, you're trending on TikTok. Someone filmed everything. It already has 50,000 views. So much for Principal Wells's social media ban. Harper couldn't help but smile grimly. In the digital age, even small-town secrets had a way of going viral. She was almost to chemistry when she noticed a cream-colored envelope tucked into the spokes of her wheelchair. Expensive paper. No name. Harper opened it carefully, aware that this could be anything from a threat to a congratulations. Inside, in elegant cursive, that could only belong to one person. Were 5 words. The Queen requests an audience. Below that, an address she recognized as the Ashford Estate, and a time, 3:30 p.m. Harper folded the note and tucked it into her pocket. She'd knocked out a night. But now the Queen was making her move, and everyone knew the Queen was the most dangerous piece on the board. As she entered chemistry class, every head turned to stare, some with fear, some with admiration, but all with a newfound wariness. The girl in the wheelchair wasn't helpless anymore. She was dangerous. Doctor, Patel barely glanced up from her lesson on molecular bonds. Miss Mitchell, how kind of you to join us. Page 143. Please. Harper opened her textbook, but her mind was elsewhere. In 7 hours, she would enter Victoria Ashford's domain, the girl who'd ruled Westfield High's social hierarchy with an iron fist wrapped in Hermes silk, the girl who dated Bryce Wellington for 2 years before unceremoniously dumping him, the girl who collected secrets like other people collected stamps. Her phone vibrated one more time. Marcus. Insurance policy uploaded. Nuclear option ready if needed. Also, proud of you. Sis. Harper smiled. Genuinely this time, she might be rolling into the lion's den, but she wouldn't be going unarmed. And if Victoria Ashford thought a girl in a wheelchair would be easy prey, she was about to learn the same lesson Bryce had. Some people were born warriors. Others were forged. Harper Mitchell sat in her modified Honda Civic at 3:25 p.m., staring up at the Ashford estate. The mansion sprawled across the hillside like a monument to generational wealth limestone facades, copper gutters gone green with age, and windows that reflected the Colorado sky, like empty eyes. You sure about this? Sophia asked from the passenger seat, nervously twisting her seatbelt. This feels like a trap. Everything's a trap when you're the prey. Harper replied, checking her phone one last time. Marcus had sent another message. Panic button activated. 1 click, and I call the cavalry. What cavalry? Sophia demanded. The police? They won't care about rich kids playing mind games. Harper pocketed her phone. Not the police. Better. But hopefully we won't need it. She transferred from the car to her wheelchair with practiced efficiency, the November wind whipping her dark hair across her face. The driveway stretched before them like a limestone runway, perfectly smooth and impossibly long. I still think this is insane, Sophia muttered, falling into step beside the wheelchair. Victoria Ashford doesn't invite people over. She summons them. There's a difference. Harper knew Sophia was right. In the 4 years since Victoria had arrived at Westfield High transferring from some Swiss boarding school that cost more than most people's houses, she'd cultivated an aura of untouchable sophistication. While other students threw parties, Victoria hosted salons. While others gossiped, she collected information. And while Bryce Wellington ruled through brute force, Victoria controlled through something far more dangerous: intelligence. The front door opened before they could ring the bell. A woman in her 50s, dressed in severe black, regarded them with professional disinterest. Miss Mitchell. Miss Shen? Her accent was crisp, vaguely European. Miss Victoria is waiting in the solarium. This way, please. The house's interior was a study in understated opulence. No gaudy displays of wealth, just quality that whispered its price in every detail. Persian rugs that swallowed footsteps, paintings that belonged in museums, furniture that had probably witnessed centuries. Sophia stays with me, Harper said when they reached a set of French doors. The woman housekeeper? Butler? Harper wasn't sure what to call her, shook her head. Miss Victoria's invitation was quite specific. Miss Mitchell alone. It's okay, Harper said, though her pulse quickened. Soph. Wait here. If I'm not out in 30 minutes, I'll burn the place down, Sophia promised, glaring at the housekeeper. The solarium was a glass cathedral jutting from the east wing of the house. Afternoon light filtered through exotic plants that Harper couldn't name, creating a green-tinted underwater effect. At the center, like a spider in an extremely expensive web, sat Victoria Ashford. She was everything. Harper wasn't tall, where Harper was average. Willowy, where Harper was athletic. Platinum blonde, where Harper was brunette. But it was her stillness that commanded attention, a quality of being perfectly centered while the world spun around her. Harper, Victoria said, not looking up from the chessboard before her. Punctual. I appreciate that. Please, join me. Harper wheeled forward, noting the second chair had been removed to accommodate her wheelchair. A thoughtful touch, or a calculated one, with Victoria. It was impossible to tell. I don't play chess. Harper said. Of course you do. Victoria moved a pawn forward. You've been playing since the moment you returned to school. Every documented incident, every calculated response. You've been 3 moves ahead of everyone. Well, she smiled slightly. Almost everyone. Harper studied the board, then the girl across from it, up close. Victoria was almost ethereal skin like porcelain, eyes the color of winter seas, cheekbones that could cut glass. But there was something else too, a sharpness that beauty couldn't quite hide. Why am I here? Harper asked directly. Because you did something remarkable this morning, Victoria said, finally meeting Harper's gaze. You made Bryce Wellington bleed. Do you know how long I've waited to see that? You dated him for 2 years. I survived him for 2 years. Victoria's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something raw underneath. There's a difference. She stood abruptly, moving to the glass wall overlooking the gardens. Tell me, Harper, what do you know about power dynamics in abusive relationships? The question caught Harper off guard. I know they're complicated. Complicated? Victoria laughed, but it sounded like breaking glass. Yes, that's one word for it. Here's another. Invisible. When someone like Bryce Wellington decides to hurt someone like me, he doesn't leave bruises. Not where they show. Harper's mind raced, reassessing everything she thought she knew about Victoria Ashford. The Ice Queen persona, the calculated control, the way she'd ended things with Bryce so publicly and decisively. He hurt you, Harper said quietly. Victoria turned back, her composure restored. He tried. The difference between you and me, Harper, is that when he grabbed my wheelchair, metaphorically speaking, I couldn't spin kick him into next week. I had to use other methods. What methods? Victoria returned to her seat, moving another chess piece. Information, leverage, fear. Did you know Bryce's father has been embezzling from his own company? Or that his mother has been having an affair with her personal trainer for 3 years? Or that Bryce himself has a sealed juvenile record from an incident in middle school that would destroy his wrestling scholarship prospects? Harper felt a chill that had nothing to do with the November weather. You're blackmailing them. I'm protecting myself. Victoria corrected. And now, I'm offering to protect you. I don't need protection. No? Victoria pulled out her phone, swiping through screens with manicured nails. In the past 4 hours, you've become a viral sensation. Wheelchair Girl Destroys Bully has 2 million views and climbing. The comment sections are illuminating. She turned the phone toward Harper. The comments ranged from supportive to vicious, but one name kept appearing, Jim Wellington. Or rather, accounts that were obviously Jim Wellington, totally not Jim W. Concerned citizen, say hey. Wellington construct 1. His mobilizing. Victoria explained. By tomorrow, there will be opinion pieces about violent disabled students and the dangers of adaptive martial arts. By next week, there will be lawyers. Good ones. The kind that can turn self-defense into assault with a deadly weapon. My wheelchair isn't a weapon. Everything is a weapon in the right hands. You proved that today. Victoria leaned back, studying Harper with those calculating eyes. The question is, what happens next? Harper considered her options. She could leave. Go home. Hope Principal Wells's support would be enough. Or she could hear out the girl who'd survived Bryce Wellington's private cruelties and lived to tell about it. What are you proposing? Harper asked. Victoria smiled, real smile this time. Sharp as a blade. An alliance. Your physical strength and my psychological warfare. Together, we don't just defend ourselves. We dismantle the entire system that allowed Bryce to exist in the first place. And what system is that? The one where money equals immunity, where victims are silenced by shame or lawsuits, where girls like us, she gestured between them, are expected to endure quietly and graduate gratefully. Victoria opened a drawer in the chess table, pulling out a folder thick with documents. 14 months ago, you weren't Bryce's first target. This is Allison Martinez. Harper recognized the name, a girl who'd transferred out sophomore year. She moved to California. She fled to California. Victoria corrected, sliding a photo across the table, after Bryce cornered her in the equipment room, after the administration said it was, he said, she said, after her parents were threatened with a lawsuit for defamation, more photos, more names. Sarah Kim, Jennifer Walsh, Madison Foster, all girls who'd left Westfield High suddenly, quietly, with sealed records and NDAs. How do you have all this? Harper breathed. Because I've been building a case for 2 years, Victoria said, documenting everything, waiting for the right moment. And then you rolled in this morning and kicked that moment right in its perfect teeth. Despite everything, Harper laughed. So what now? Now we give them a choice. The Wellingtons. The school board. Everyone who's been complicit, they can face a very public reckoning criminal charges, civil suits, media attention that will make today's viral video look like a whisper. Or, they can agree to our terms. Bryce expelled. Jim Wellington removed from any school contracts, a comprehensive anti-bullying policy with actual consequences, and a fund, let's say $2 million for victims of harassment at Westfield High. Harper stared at her. You're talking about extortion. I'm talking about justice. The only kind available to people like us? Victoria's eyes glittered. Unless you prefer to wait for the system to save you? Ask Allison Martinez how that worked out. Harper's phone buzzed. A text from her mother. Honey, there are news vans outside our apartment. What's going on? It's starting. Victoria observed. The Wellington machine. By tonight, you'll be painted as either a violent menace or an inspirational victim. Neither narrative serves you. What narrative would you suggest? Victoria moved her queen across the board. A sweeping diagonal that threatened multiple pieces. The truth. That Westfield High has been harboring a serial predator, that the administration has been systematically covering up assaults, that what happened today wasn't an isolated incident, but the inevitable result of institutional failure, and you have proof of all this? I have everything. Testimony. Documents. Recordings. 2 years of evidence waiting for someone brave enough to be the face of it. She met Harper's eyes. I can't be that face. My family's immigration status is complicated. Too much attention, and we risk deportation. But you, I'm the all-American victim. Harper finished. Sympathetic. Telegenic. White. Pragmatic. Victoria corrected. We used the tools available. Harper looked at the chessboard, seeing the trap Victoria had laid, multiple pieces converging on the king. No escape routes left. When? Tonight. 6 p.m. press conference. I've already contacted Channel 7. They're hungry for an exclusive. We frame the narrative before the Wellingtons can. You tell your story. I provide the documentation. Others will come forward once they see it's safe. How do you know? Victoria's smile turned sad. Because I've been in touch with them. Allison. Sarah. The others. They're ready. They just need someone to go first. Harper thought about her mother. Probably fielding calls from reporters. About Principal Wells. Fighting a system bigger than one school. About Miss Rodriguez. Teaching girls to defend themselves because no one else would. I need to make a call. Harper said. Victoria gestured to the door. Privacy is through there. But Harper, decide quickly. The Wellingtons won't wait. Harper wheeled into the adjacent study. Pulling out her phone, she didn't call her mother or Marcus. Instead, she dialed a number she'd memorized but never used. Rodriguez here. Miss Rodriguez. It's Harper. I need to ask you something. Are you safe? Her trainer's voice sharpened with concern. For now, but I need to know when you competed. Before your accident. Did you ever have to fight outside the ring? A long pause. Once. A coach who thought female athletes were there for his entertainment. I broke his nose at a federation dinner. What happened after? They banned me for a year. Said I was unstable. Violent. My career never recovered. Miss Rodriguez's voice carried old pain. But Harper, I'd do it again. Because after that, he never touched another athlete. Even though it cost you everything, it cost me a career. It saved others from worse. That's a trade I can live with. Harper thanked her and hung up. When she returned to the solarium, Victoria was watering an orchid with careful precision. Well? Victoria asked without turning. I'm in. But we do this my way. Victoria set down the watering can, which is no backroom deals, no hush money, everything public, everything transparent. The Wellingtons don't get to slink away quietly. They face consequences like everyone else. That's riskier, maybe, but I'm tired of secrets. They're what allowed this to happen in the first place. Victoria studied her for a long moment, then extended her hand. Partners? Harper shook it, surprised by the calluses she felt. Not the soft hands of a pampered princess, after all. Partners. Now let's plan a war. The next 3 hours passed in a blur of strategy. Victoria's network was extensive: journalists, lawyers, activists, all ready to mobilize. Harper contributed her documentation, her story, and most importantly, her willingness to be the face of something bigger than one morning's confrontation. By 5:45 p.m., they were ready. Harper's mother had been briefed and convinced. It took both girls and a speakerphone call with Marcus to manage that. Sophia had been dispatched to coordinate with the other victims. Principal Wells had been given a heads up and had promised to have the school's records ready. The news vans were waiting outside Harper's apartment building like hungry wolves. But this time, Harper wasn't prey. Ready? Victoria asked, sitting beside Harper in the back of the Ashford Town car. No, Harper admitted, but that's never stopped me before. They pulled up to find chaos. Reporters, cameras, microphones thrust forward like weapons, but also supporter students from Westfield High, disability rights activists. Victoria had contacted parents who'd wondered why their children came home crying. Jim Wellington was there too, flanked by lawyers, his face purple with rage. He started toward Harper's wheelchair, but a wall of supporters blocked his path. This is slander, he shouted over the crowd. Defamation. I'll sue every one of you. Mr. Wellington, Victoria said coolly, producing a recorder from her purse. Would you like to comment on this recording from October 3rd, where you tell Principal Morrison to handle the complaint against your son? Or perhaps this email trail showing you threatened to pull funding if Bryce was disciplined? The blood drained from his face. Where did you get those? Your son taught me the value of documentation, Victoria replied. Every cruel word, every threat, every cover-up. He was an excellent teacher. Harper took the makeshift podium, really just to spot where the cameras could see her clearly. The crowd quieted, waiting. My name is Harper Mitchell, she began, her voice carrying despite her racing heart. 14 months ago, I was paralyzed in a car accident caused by a drunk driver. I thought that was the worst thing that could happen to me. I was wrong. She told them everything. The daily harassment, the administrative indifference, the escalation that led to this morning's confrontation, but more than that, she told them about the others, the girls who'd been silenced, driven away, made to feel worthless. Bryce Wellington didn't see my wheelchair as a mobility aid, Harper said. He saw it as proof that I was less than human, that I existed for his entertainment. Today, I proved him wrong, but I shouldn't have had to. What do you want? A reporter called out. Harper looked at Victoria, who nodded encouragingly. I want Westfield High to be safe for every student. I want accountability for those who enabled abuse. And I want anyone watching who's been told they're powerless to know you're not. You're stronger than they think. You just have to be willing to fight back. The questions came fast after that. Harper fielded them with Victoria's coached precision, always bringing it back to the larger pattern, the systemic failures, the need for change. Then Bryce himself pushed through the crowd, his face bandaged, his perfect smile ruined. You destroyed my life. He snarled at Harper. Over what? Some jokes? Harper met his eyes steadily. No? Bryce, you destroyed your own life. I just held up a mirror. You're nothing. He spat. A cripple playing victim. The crowd recoiled, cameras capturing every word. Even his father stepped back, realizing the damage being done. I'm a survivor, Harper corrected, and unlike you, I'm still standing. It was technically inaccurate. He was sitting in her wheelchair, but metaphorically, it was the truest thing she'd ever said. The next weeks were a whirlwind. The story went national. Investigations were launched. Jim Wellington's construction company lost its contracts with the school district. Bryce was expelled and charged with assault. Turns out, there was security footage of him attacking other students too. More importantly, victims came forward. Not just from Westfield High, but from schools across the country. Harper's story had opened a floodgate, and the system that had protected bullies for so long began to crumble. Victoria Ashford disappeared as quietly as she'd appeared, her family moving to New York, where her father had taken a new position, but she left Harper a parting gift, a chess set, and a note. The Queen's greatest power isn't her range of movement. It's knowing when to sacrifice herself for the greater game. You were my greatest match. V. 6 months later, Harper competed in her first adaptive athletics competition, winning gold in wheelchair racing. Miss Rodriguez was there, tears streaming down her face as Harper crossed the finish line. Principal Wells implemented a comprehensive anti-bullying program that became a model for the state. The $2 million fund Victoria had demanded, it materialized from anonymous donors and provided counseling and support for harassment victims. And Bryce Wellington? He spent his senior year at a military academy in Montana, learning about discipline and consequences the hard way. His father's empire crumbled under investigation, revealing years of corruption and cover-ups. But the biggest change was in Harper herself. She no longer counted wheel rotations to calm her anxiety. She didn't need Tosh. She'd found her power, her voice, her purpose. The girl who'd been afraid to come to school now taught self-defense classes at Miss Rodriguez's expanded gym. The girl who documented harassment in secret now spoke at conferences about disability rights and bullying prevention. The girl who'd been told she was broken had proved that sometimes it's the broken places that grow back strongest. On the anniversary of the kick that changed everything, Harper received a message from Allison Martinez. "Thank you for being the first one brave enough to fight back. You saved us all." Harper smiled, looking at her reflection in the trophy case, the same one where she'd once seen only vulnerability. Now she saw a warrior, not because she could throw a kick from a wheelchair, but because she'd refused to let anyone else define her limits. The girl in the wheelchair smiled back, scarred but unbroken, sitting tall and unafraid. Because Harper Mitchell was nobody's victim, she was everybody's hope. 1 year later, Harper wheeled through Westfield High's main entrance for the last time as a student. The hallway that had once been her battlefield now felt like conquered territory. She paused at the spot where Bryce had grabbed her chair, where everything had changed. "You okay?" Sophia asked, adjusting her graduation cap. "Just remembering," Harper said. The trophy case had been updated. Between the wrestling championships and academic achievements sat a new addition, Harper Mitchell Courage Award, for students who stand against injustice. The first recipient had been a freshman who reported a teacher's inappropriate behavior. The second, a sophomore who'd started a support group for LGBTQ students. The ripples of Harper's defiance continued to spread. "Miss Mitchell," Principal Wells approached, her own eyes misty. "Before the ceremony, I wanted to thank you. When I took this job, I thought I could change things quietly, diplomatically. You taught me that sometimes change requires a further earthquake. You supported me when it mattered." Harper replied, "That's what made the difference." Wells handed her an envelope. "Your speech, valedictorian, suits you." Harper had beaten Victoria Ashford's GPA by 0.02 of a point, even from New York. Her former ally had sent congratulations. "Well played." The student surpasses the teacher. V. As Harper prepared to address her graduating class, she thought about the girl who'd counted wheel rotations to manage anxiety. That girl was still part of her, but she'd grown into something more, not unbreakable. She'd learned that strength wasn't about being invulnerable, it was about getting back up, even when getting up meant something different than it did for everyone else. "Every ending is a beginning," Harper said into the microphone, looking out at hundreds of faces. "And sometimes, the worst moments of our lives become the catalysts for our greatest transformations." She'd been broken, she'd been rebuilt, and she'd discovered that sometimes the cracks are where the light gets in. The applause was thunderous.